Now, to begin our discussion here, or excerpts from our conversation on Tuesday is compiled by Oyeyemi Ajayi.
Sadly enough, if you visit most, if not all, of the police training institutions that I know of in this country, it's a huge embarrassment. Huge embarrassment. They lack a lot of facilities. Nothing to write home about. Then before you start talking about the personnel, the instructors, the lecturers, those that will train these officers who will serve, who will perform as law enforcement officers, it's not just there. We still find in the service today a good number of officers who cannot read, who cannot write. That is the gospel truth. And to a large extent, all of these have hindered their performance. Even for those that are properly trained, well-educated, professionally competent, again, the other dimension is inadequacy of the empowerment.
I think the police or other law enforcement agencies need to recognize that their strength lies in the street police officer, the constable, the corporal, the sergeant, and a lot of greater emphasis should be placed on not just training, but the orientation and welfare of officers at this level. A lot needs to be done at that level to improve their welfare, their training, but internally, yes, a lot of money going to the police, but the question starts from budgeting. A lot of law enforcement agencies have almost this single line budgeting. And when it comes, the tendency is to spend it at the discretion of the chief executive because they are not appropriately disaggregated by the different components of expenditure. So I think a lot need more to be done. If they do that, also I hope it will help in the appropriation through the legislature.
I'd want to see a situation where policemen are no more posted to work with politicians because they are helping in actually corrupting them. And again, this is what is encouraging some of them to want to make money at all cost and by all means. Because, for example, a member of a State House of Assembly who is only a secondarian and happens to become a member, and day in, day out, he's spending lavishly, and the policeman attached to him is seeing how things are, and maybe the policeman is even a graduate. This is a secondarian who, by all standards, is not his match, but is making so much money. So he will begin to think, except of course those who really have the fear of God in them, who would want to create other means by which he will be making extra money, not to rely only on his salary. And this is why corruption in the services, not just the police alone, in all the services, is from top to bottom.
All right, thank you very much, Oyeyemi Ajayi, for the excerpts from part one of our conversation yesterday, Tuesday. We already have guests with us here in the studios, as well as from one of our network centers. Let's welcome Abdurrahman Ainde Yakubu. He's Director of Civil and Political Rights of the National Human Rights Commission. Abdurrahman Ainde, pleasure to have you on Good Morning Nigeria.
It's my pleasure, thank you.
Also here with us in the Abuja studios, we would like to welcome retired Assistant Inspector General of Police, Wilson Inalegu. Pleasure to have you, IG, with us this morning.
I'm pleased to be here with you. Good morning.
Also here in Abuja studio is the former spokesperson, Nigerian Army, retired Brigadier General Sani Usman Kukasheka, MNI. Welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning. Thank you for having me on your program.
Joining us from Kano studio is Mohammed Hadi Zarewa, Assistant Inspector General of Police, retired and former Force Secretary. Welcome to Good Morning Nigeria, Hadi.
Thank you very much.
All right, gentlemen, once again, I'd like to have you join us. Well, we have two retired AIGs with us this morning. We had clarified this when we were kicking off today's edition of the program based on the typology provided by one of our guests yesterday, Professor Alemika, that when we're talking about law enforcement, the focus is not strictly on the police itself. Nadabo, you recall?
Yeah,
yes, and they did say that, look, there are two broad categories. There's policing, where you can, of course, throw in the police, NDLEA, and say civil defense. There is also regulatory. You have customs, you have immigration. These are regulatory functions. You also have NAFDAC. Those are regulatory functions, law enforcement arms. But of course, the team of guests that we have this morning will be drilling further into all of these issues. Let's begin with Mohammed Hadi Zarewa in our Kano Network Center. He's a former Force Secretary. Tell us something. One of the key things that came out yesterday from our conversation had to do with, one, entry and training and then orientation. Entry, there's the widespread allegation, not just for the police, but for law enforcement in general, once again, to say there's usually now cash for recruitment, and therefore we are unable to get our best. To get recruited into the force. There is also the problem of training and retraining. That training is not given the priority. An exception was made for the military, by the way, and General Sheka is here with us. He will also explain that. That to be posted to a training institution is seen as being sent to Siberia. Why is this so?
Thank you very much for that question. You see, when you look at the issue of recruitment, it's a very sad thing what is happening now, not only in the Nigerian police force, but when you look at the army, the custom, people now exchanging money, people who are even supposed to be recruited or qualified to go, because if you don't know anybody, you cannot go there. It's very unfortunate. And you see, those people, even you look, most of the, to be honest, you see, the politicians, most of them, you see that they are sons and daughters, relation, and what have you now. If you don't have any link with any one of these politicians, it's not easy for you to be recruited in most of these security agency, custom, immigration, NDLA, SS, whatever you can call. It's very sad that we have found ourselves in this situation. The recruitment system has to be changed. And when you look at the training equally, you go to the police colleges. It's a very sad situation when you look at what is happening in the colleges. The accommodation is very poor. There's no training facilities. There's the lecturers, most of them are not interested to go there, because you discover that most of those people are going to teach in the colleges are people who have some problem, because if you maybe committed something in the command, they say post him to college. Instead of getting qualified people enter, because if the only way you can, and most of the time when you go to college there, you are not taken care of. The training, nobody take care of you. You discover that you are there on punishment. You are not ready to teach. Because I've been in the college, I taught in the academy. We started the Nigerian Police Academy in Kaduna. Most of us who went there, we discovered that people are, for one reason or the other, are posted and trained to academy to go and teach. So we have to look at the arms and ammunition. When you look on training, you discover that sometimes there's no arm to go for the shooting exercise, and you discover that most of the people are not even ready to get qualified people to go and teach at the colleges. So it's very sad area that the recruitment, we have to look at it, and the training also, we have to look at it. These are very sensitive area. If you cannot train a good policeman, you don't expect him to go and perform. If you don't recruit a person who is qualified, who is ready to go, it's not easy. And you discover that even those people who went through the politician, after training, when they come out, you see them there, they want to go and be orderly, or want to be ADC, they want to go to do the normal work or the job there now. It's very sad that we have to look at this area of training, to look at area of the area of recruitment exercise. We have completely departed from the, because in those days when I wanted to become a policeman, as a cadet SP now, we were called to interview in Lagos. We were ready. We interview very well. You see, it's not like now that most of the police, they don't even go for the interview. Sometimes you can even discover. Sometimes they will send you the letter of employment or recruitment in your house without even going to attend the interview. It's very sad that we have to do something in the issue of the recruitment, in the issue of training colleges. There's no facility in the college. The teachers who are teaching there, they are just there not because they want to go and teach.
Thank you so much, Hadi Zorewa, State Inspector General of Police. Let me put it to Wilson Inalego, again, another Assistant Inspector General of Police, retired too. We can only get it right if we start from the scratch with a very sound foundation. Recruitment is why it is. And if all, point toward the fact that recruitment is faulty, it means there is some gloom ahead. And the whole thing is going to really look so bad for us in the future, because the future is what we're looking at. Law reform, law enforcement reforms, this is the issue at stake at the moment. In other words, how do we get it right at the beginning? Recruitment, for instance. That's talking about law enforcement agencies generally, not just the police, if possible.
We have criteria for recruitment. But like my senior colleague just stated, are they being abided with? How do these guys find themselves in? So we have to go back to the basics. We look at it from the beginning. Who has the features, the physical features and educational qualification to be recruited into the Nigerian police force, either at the academy or at the recruit level? And it's very important we get it right at the recruitment level, especially for the constables, because they are the face of the force with the public. And if these guys have poor education, poor training, the impact and the image of the force will be dented. It's quite sad. And I think it's about accountability of our elected officials. Because if you don't have the right person and there is a spike in crime or lots of complaints against police misconduct, it should affect elected officials. And then they begin to prioritize the issue of competence. I went for a recruitment exercise at a police college in 2017. And we had done all the screening, checked the physical features, education, age, and all that. And we spent nearly a week. And I saw that all those ones we did, it was a fruitless effort.
Your selection?
Yes, because there were some strange candidates, applicants.
Later on.
Yes. So the thing is, when we are talking about the public, the police and the public partnering, it means what affects the police, not just about crime, but even at the recruitment, people should begin to raise observations. If that is not done, you are going to be having all this. And like my senior colleague rightly said, this issue of recruitment is not just the Nigerian police force. A lot of people come to you and say, oh, that agency is recruiting. They are demanding for 500,000. They are demanding for 200,000. So I think it's a societal thing. It's something the government and the people of Nigeria should properly address, because we are not going to have the right people in the right places unless we are able to properly screen and put them. And that is why when the Nigerian policeman or officer goes to foreign mission, his performances is outstanding. Why? Because you go through a rigorous process of selection through the SAT exams. You do written exams, comprehension, summary. They read something on the radio, in the radio. You're able to take the dictation. Summary, they ask you questions. You pass from that first grade. You progress to the next stage. The next stage, they say, okay, now is shooting. Now is driving. You go through the process. So when you have our officers go out of this country, they perform outstandingly well because the process of selection to serve in the United Nations peacekeeping mission or the African Union peace mission is done through a rigorous process of selection. So that goes to explain that if we get recruitment correct, we are likely to get officers who will be better equipped to police in a complex and diverse society like ours. So I think the point is, it's all about accountability in leadership. People should know that if you don't do well, there are consequences. You know, AIG in Alego, thank you very much. I would still keep General Kukasheka and Abdul Rahman of Human Rights Commission on pause at the moment, so that let's try and examine further the 2 points, the issues rather raised by the two former AIG. I want to go back to Kano. AIG Zarewa. Yes, I mean, we know that these things are happening, but why is it that those who are in office at the material times that these things are happening, such as, for instance, seeking to short-circuit the qualities or qualifications required for recruitment or appropriate training, do not stand up and say, well, these persons you have asked us to recruit or to engage are not qualified? I don't want to say whether it's just a matter of collusion between the managers in situ and those who are imposing this list on them, because at the end of the day, you find yourself, I mean, if you are a manager, of course, I'm just using that generally as a title, if you are running an organization and the kind of hands that are being brought to you to run the organization are not competent, the organization is bound to collapse. Why is it that those who are insiders do not resist this outside pressure? Is it because they're also looking for favors?
Well, I don't know. Well, you see what is happening just now. If you can remember, the last recruitment exercise that took place, there was a problem between the Police Service Commission and the Office of the former Inspector General of Police. But I didn't see why there should be that problem, because everybody knows that if you read the law of this country, we know recruitment of police officers is the responsibility of Police Service Commission. You see? So what I'm saying now, if there's interference from the outside, you know, I don't know what actually is happening, because this is not happening, but it's happening now. Can we say because of the political situation? Can we say that, is it corruption is too much in the country? Can we say that we are not even serious about, I mean, the making sure that we have a good Nigerian police force? Or I don't know. Because the procedure, like mentioned by my colleague there, is there. When you are going to apply for a constable, there's a procedure. You go, you apply, you go. If you are going for a cadet ASP, you are a graduate, you go there. And it's a responsibility. That's, you know, like the time when I was, recruited as a cadet ASP, I was interviewed by the former Inspector General of Police that time now. That is Adamu Selema, is my soul rest in peace, because he died that time now. We were interviewed in Lagos. Everybody immediately after our NYC, we went for the con. There's a procedure, but we are not following the procedures, because everybody is trying to show that, no, I'm in charge, Mr. Person is in charge. You see, forgetting that we have to look at the political situation, the interference of the main policy, whatever can I say.
Thank you, Zarewa. Kingsley, if you wouldn't mind, let's get outside the police force now. And
that's fine.
Maybe we can get some other opinions out. Abdurrahman Ayinde, let's hear your views about this very issue. We can only get it right from the beginning. Recruitment is just it. Without that, we'll be really having a lot of issues, and there it goes and becomes a very long, vicious circle. In your opinion, since there are pointing fingers now all over the place to other sections of the society who try to interfere with this, rules and regulations guiding and governing recruitment, what do you think, or how do you look at this very situation from the point of view of the civil society, who the police are protecting and who the law enforcement agencies too are doing their best for?
Thank you very much for that very, very important and critical question. We all know that we were not like this. And there was a time in this country that we did things properly. And that was also alluded by the first two speakers. There was a time that public officers abided by the rules and regulations. But after some time, one thing or the other happened, and we derailed. And now we are seeing the consequences of that derailment. We know there's no doubt that law enforcement is a critical part of governance. And this law enforcement must be carried out by the police and other law enforcement agencies. Without law enforcement, there cannot be good governance. And what we have now is that the standards of recruitment and training in all our law enforcement training colleges have been completely, gone down. And now what I will say is that there's need for deliberate, conscious, and innovative way of reforming recruitment and training into law enforcement agencies. Because if we do not get that right, it will be difficult for us to have the kind of officers that we want to enforce law and order. There must be need to have a time frame. We need to have a time frame within which we want to reform, particularly recruitment and training. And we have to review the standards. We also have to ensure that any issue that has to do with corruption is promptly investigated and dealt with. Thank you.
All right, Abdurrahman, thank you very much. Let's bring in now Brigadier General Sani Kukasheka. What is it that can be learned from the military example with regard to recruitment and training? I know this is a very broad question, but what is it that other law enforcement agencies can learn? Because strictly, the military is not a law enforcement agency, but what is it that we can learn from it?
Well, thank you very much. I think there are so many things. First and foremost, over time, procedures are being adhered to, and they are being systematic. And most importantly is understanding the fact that the nature of military duty or service is something that you cannot continue to cover the ineptness or inefficiency of a particular officer or soldier, as the case may be. More so given the current dispensation where we are, contending with myriads of security challenges. The saying is that by the time you manage someone as a cadet, definitely you continue to manage him up to the time he becomes a general. So why should you, in the first place, shoot yourself in the foot by enlisting or recruiting someone that you will keep on managing, that you will not get the desired result? So invariably, just like the AIG has said, there are procedures, and the procedures are being adhered to. And more so, you understand that you are also a stakeholder, because bulk of the recruitment officers that we have in the States, they are at the rank of majors or thereabout, and you graduate up to brigadier general. So they are stakeholders in the scheme of things. If you recruit the wrong material, and of course, possibly he might not be adequately trained, and you, at the end of the day, he will end up being in your command. And of course, he will ruin that your command. That is, even if you are lucky that through his misdemeanor, he did not lead to loss of lives and equipment. So invariably, it's question of, responsibility to our various duties. And I can give you an example. You know, Nigerians, they are very, very wonderful in the sense that I could remember way back in the 90s when I was serving as a young officer, even in Depot Nigerian Army, we had these recruitment officers in the States. So there was this guy who specialized, more or less like, do I say a mercenary? His job is to go through the procedures of recruitment process on behalf of a particular candidate, you know, given certain amount of money. But of course, during the screening process, that recruitment officer realized that a particular person is not the same person that he recruited in that state. And of course, I was marveled. I said, how do you know? He said, because over time, you know, the recruitment exercise takes certain period of time. So you get to know those that are candidates over time, right from the physical, certificate screening, physical screening, medical checkup. So you tend to have your fingers on each and every one of them. You know their peculiarities. Now, he said, look, over his dead body, and lo and behold, the man confessed that actually that is how he has been living. Over time, when they come to Zaria, he will thin out and the other person will come in. You know, because he remembers specifically that one has protruded tooth. And he disqualified him. And how comes he was there? Just to tell you that he has an eagle eye and has eyes for details. And he was being responsible, you know, to know the implications of what he is doing. Now, that is one. Secondly, just like I said, times have changed. Invariably, whatever you're doing should not be in isolation with the context of the Nigerian society. What are those supporting elements that, you know, enhance, you know, people with flair for other things to go for it? Take, for instance, a lot of people are compelled to go into the law enforcement recruitment simply because there are no other alternative employment opportunities. So let me join the army. So you see, so the number, unlike before, is so large, so it is very difficult to monitor and evaluate. And of course, even the funding for the recruitment exercise. Take, for instance, the medical procedure or the what do you call it, the vetting. And I remember again, there was a time somebody was recruited and the police in Zaria raised an observation simply because he was a convicted rapist before. That is another thing. Then secondly, what are those, again, vetting procedures even after recruitment? We have had instances, supposedly somebody with A1 in geography, and he was asked, what are the cardinal points? He doesn't know. Yes. So these are issues that we have to, so it's a total or a holistic system. It is not just the agency that is even doing the recruitment, but the wider society, because you have to involve, what do you call it, the state employment promotion officers, because they ought to know who is party. Just yesterday I saw someone was lamenting about recruitment into one of the agencies that they came from a particular state and particular names, they don't belong to that state. I said, well, first and foremost, you should find out whether the list is correct or not, because sometimes with the social media, there are so many things flying around. But if that is the case, what is the role of those people from the state? And what are the role of other law enforcement agencies? Because I know when you are thinking of security, you must recruit the right caliber of people, those who possess the qualification. It is not just about certification or physical fitness, but even psychologically. And I can tell you, there was also another instance when somebody's son was disqualified and they used the blanket reason of psychological, he failed psychological test. And he said, no, his son was up and doing this and that and all the rest. They say, okay, now, your son has been into substance abuse for quite some time now. He couldn't believe it. For the past 3 years, his son has been, you know, taking marijuana and all the rest of the thing. And by the time they sat him with the son and the son started telling how he has been pilfering some amount of money to do, he started crying. So basically, it is not just that, even the society has a role to play in terms of child upbringing. Because in most cases, anytime you have a problematic child, you hear, oh, let him go to the army because he's very stubborn. And I said,
right,
come on.
right.
People have once told me that, and I told them that, look, I never know that you have such a low opinion about me that you thought I was a truant child before I joined the army. No,
strong-headed.
I was passionate about the nation. That is why. It is not because of one shortcoming. So the parents themselves should up their game in the sense of upbringing of the children so that the right people will be recruited into the system. And because honestly, there is a limit to which you can, you know, do I say mold a civilian into a fighting machine, a soldier, for instance? Because the value system has changed, and of course the training period still remains the same. And just like he said, of course there is need, just like Abraham said about innovation in terms of training, given the fact that the value system of the Nigeria has changed, and the training period still remains the same. I think 6 months, either for the police and civil defense, and I believe also in the army. So we really have to critically look at all these things and bring everybody involved that has role to play and all the stakeholders, including traditional rulers, because they know them. They know them in the recruitment and system. And again, without adherence to the procedure, we are in real trouble. I could remember again, there was a time, I don't want to mention name, a federal lawmaker took a bus to depot Nigerian army with a number of youth. He wanted them to be recruited into the army. Now, for goodness sake, the commandant of depot Nigerian army, he has no role whatsoever in the recruitment process. His is to train these people from raw civilians into fighting machine for the need of the Nigerian army. But yet he, of course, he is a member of an influential committee, and you can see how careers and all the rest. So the issue of vested interest has to be dealt with, and we can only think of that if we have a proper sense of direction, because it is just like what do they say, the computer system. It is what you garbage in, that is what you garbage out. So if we want these law enforcement agencies to have the right caliber of human resources that are professional, are passionate about the job, we have to critically look at the recruitment process, and in so doing, we have to look at these factors that I have said.
Thank you so much, Brigadier General. That is. Let me come back to Wilson in Lego. The Brigadier has already, profiled some solutions, and I don't know if Nigerian police, for instance, and other law enforcement agencies, take the police for instance, can really move out of this country and perform really excellently well, and that could be attributed, as you said, to proper a selection process that takes place outside this country for them to perform either at AU or UN level. Why can't such proper selection process be done at home, and those found to be interfering with this very process brought to book?
Well, it is possible, but we have an atmosphere that is politically very acrimonious, adversarial political agendas. I'm beginning to say, even as a commissioner of police, for example, you want to perform your duty, and somebody says, no, that man belongs to that party, that man belongs to that party. So we are operating in an atmosphere of a lot of tension, political acrimony, and that you can easily be tagged to belong to one party. Because when you ask my senior in Kano why they couldn't resist, of course officers are resisting. Of course officers, some commandants are very bold and say, look, this guy does not meet that requirement. I'm not training the person. And nothing has happened to such officers. There are officers, a lot has been done. So what I think is a collective effort, because this was not the situation. I recall in those days, prior 1999, things were a lot more stable. Recruitment was done. You didn't have much interference. You didn't have lists coming from anywhere. You just go for the interview. You are qualified, you are informed, and you start your training. When we went, I didn't know anybody in Kaduna. I just took an evening vehicle from Makurdi to Kaduna, and I was interviewed. And one day I found my name in the Voice newspaper, the Benue State paper. I didn't have anybody to talk to, or for me. But from 1999, even if you are getting in one committee that is influential, the candidate you bring has to be qualified. We used to have, let me take you back, we used to have development courses. That means you are a corporal, you are a sergeant, you are an inspector. You go for development courses. Right now, it is the officers who go for junior command course, intermediate command course, and senior command courses. The senior officers of the Nigerian police are very well trained. But there is a lot of pressure on the rank and file. And so, where is the facility to have them in the colleges? So, the rotation, the development courses we used to have, not for promotion, not promotion courses, just after a period, you go back to the college, you are trained. Where is the funds? Where are the facilities to do that? And so, the appeal that I have, therefore, is the elected officials and police management team must understand that having the right caliber officers who help them to deliver on their mandate of protecting life and property, and also invariably the government, the welfare and security of citizens being the paramount responsibility of government, that if you have well-trained officers, well-educated officers, of course also well-motivated, you are going to have the kind of security that you have. So the question that you asked, my answer simply is, let there be a political will. Well, Lego, thank you very much. Abdurrahman, one of the points that emerged from our first part of the conversation yesterday, and which has also been raised now as an obiter by Inalego, is framed as follows: that a key challenge that we have with law enforcement in Nigeria today is inequality of all before the law. Yeah?
Okay, I shall comment on that.
Yes.
Okay.
Inequality. Ordinarily, everybody's supposed to be equal before the law.
Yeah, thank you very much.
But when, as a commissioner of police, you are being issued directives, no, don't touch that person because he belongs to my party, or touch the other one because he belongs to the opposition party, or this smuggler is bringing in goods, it's from my state, don't disturb me, XYZ. Inequality before the law is seen as a major hindrance to efficient and effective law enforcement in Nigeria. What are your thoughts?
Okay, thank you very much. One of the cardinal principles of right to fair trial is equality of all persons before the law. But I think what we are having now has to do with erosion of standards. And I think I want to put it in this perspective. One of the challenges we have in this country now has to do with degradation of our national values. So we cannot be talking about law enforcement reforms or police reforms or any other kind of reform without first looking at a national rebirth and a national reorientation. So now what I mean is that if we have public officers, including the police, that right from the home, the schools, and all other processes, they have imbibed this culture of ethical values. It will be difficult for anybody, apart from few deviants. We know that we can never have a perfect society, but by and large, we will have majority of Nigerians who have imbibed the culture of ethical value. And in whatever capacity they find themselves, they will maintain good standard. It's very unfortunate that most of our law enforcement agents, they do not treat suspects in the same way. Majority of them, they are open to inducement, and that is also one of the reasons why they cannot perform their job very well. And also, we have this issue now. All these things were not like that before. In the past, I keep on saying that in this country, we had one of the best public service all over the world. But after some time, because of the erosion of our ethical values, we lost standards and we now began to do anything. And that is why we are where we are today. So before we can have policemen and women or law enforcement men and women that treat everybody equally, it starts from a national reorientation. So one of the reasons why they do that is because they don't have any ethical value, and they feel that this is their own time to make money when they have to treat suspects instead of them to abide by the rules and regulations. I would say the Nigerian police force, as well as other law enforcement agents, they are disciplined institutions. They have standards, they have rules and regulations. But there are certain individuals, particularly the rank and file, and also some in the middle category, that are falling far, far below standards. And these kind of people, they are the ones denting the image of these law enforcement agents. So as I said earlier, we really need to go back to the drawing board and have a clear strategy. I would suggest a medium-term plan whereby all of us, particularly those at leadership, so we provide a sense of direction, which have to do with a national reorientation and rebirth.
When you say medium-term plan, could you expatiate on that, given the fact that we are trying to see how we can get solutions to these problems we are facing? In your opinion, what would be the content of this medium-term plan you mentioned?
Okay, if we put this challenge in perspective, we will see that the road is so high, and except we want to deceive ourselves, it will be very, very difficult to say in 2-3 years all these issues that we are talking about will be reformed. That is why I mentioned a medium-term plan. And I think if we talk about law enforcement agencies, the various boards, like the Police Service Commission, the Prisons Immigration Board, and also the ministries in charge of these agencies, like the Ministry of Police Affairs, they need to actually go back to the drawing board and come up with clear-cut strategy on how to reform the system. There have been attempts in the past to reform, but for me, I think these attempts, they are not deep enough. So we need to have a kind of, we need to look at the substance and not the shadow. And it will take some time. So we will be talking about maybe annual plan that will graduate into a medium-term plan. And I'm sure if we do that, if we really have an effective strategic implementation plan within the period of 5-6 years, looking at these various critical areas of challenges: recruitment, selection, training, promotion, welfare. There are some agents that somebody is promoted, and it takes 3 or 4 or 5 years before that person earn the new salary. Somebody is transferred from Lagos to Maiduguri, it takes 3 or 4 years before that person even gets any allowance. So except we are deceiving ourselves, it will be extremely difficult for that kind of person because that person is not motivated. So,
Okay, Abdul Rahman, sorry, let's bring in Kuka Sheka in again. In terms of what we need to do and what we should do to begin to enthrone equality before the law as a cardinal post in our law enforcement mechanism. Because the whole idea of saying he's a big man, he's connected, she is connected, oh, it's my relative, oh, don't do this, you pull an officer who is on the case, no, don't pursue that case, X, Y, Z. These are things that some persons will tell you in other jurisdictions are anathema. And yet, this would appear to be common occurrences with us, which is why the law keeps failing.
Well, I think we have extant laws, particularly starting from the grand norm, the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Is explicit about fundamental rights and equality before the law. Now the problem is, why is it that in practical terms that is not so? And we can identify the factors. First and foremost, you look at the incapacity of the institutions that are responsible for that. Over time, instead of us to strengthen the institutions for this, we have not been doing so. And unless we do that, you will still be running in cycles. Now, in every problem, there is clear remedy. But do we have the will to ensure that the judicial system or the criminal justice system ensure that such things are being done? Then secondly, you look at the overall orientation of the Nigerian society. To what extent are we conscious of the fact that equality before the law enhance democracy and well-being of the society? Because bulk of the security challenges we are having is simply because of lack of sense of belonging. Somebody, if I know for sure, if I do something that is inimical to the society or to the law of the land, I know that I will be sanctioned accordingly. Definitely, it will serve as deterrence. But time without number, people will do things and get away with it. And unless that is checked, we'll continue to have problems. But of course, just like Abraham has mentioned, there is a there is a need for national reorientation. All you have to do, you see the issue of individual or self-discipline. Take for instance the issue of obeying simple traffic rules, maybe traffic lights. In most instances, people do not even understand the benefit of that. But to what extent, again, the law enforcement agencies are helping, in enforcement of those mundane things, so to speak. These are the issues. But the starting point, again, I had mentioned again, the societal value system over time is being eroded. Unless we go back, we emphasize on that family system because it is the minutest unit. Because if you can police a family, eventually it's just to add on to it up to communal, state, the local government, national level, so that we have a clear sense of direction. And we have to go back again. That's what are those things that Nigerians aspire to? The Constitution is said that we the people. But beyond we the people, what is the aspiration of the Nigerian state? How do we see ourselves? But then again, how do we see ourselves, but how do we get to where we are? So we should have that kind of orientation that will give people a sense of belonging, that everybody will look at himself or herself as an equal stakeholder with the responsibility. And those statutorily charged with the responsibility of enforcing the law or administering or managing things should do it to the best of their abilities. And if there is any infraction, the system should deal with them accordingly. So with this and many more, we can be able to ensure equality before the law. And I can tell you, Nigeria will be a better country than it is.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Brigadier General Sani Kukasheka. We'll go on a break, but before we do that, when we come back, we look at the national orientation thing, looking at the strengthening of the institutions, and indeed having to see the values or the role and responsibilities of the family in this regard, because it all starts from there. Having the reform, getting the agencies going on sound footing starts from the beginning. That's far from recruitment. And having to change the values and the reorientation in Nigeria has to start from the family unit, as the brigadier said. We'll go on break. It's Good Morning Nigeria. We're discussing the second part of law enforcement reform. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria, and we're discussing the second part of law enforcement reforms. As we promised before the break, let's hear the views of our, conversationists on these critical issues of national reorientation and then strengthening the institutions and, of course, having to move forward from where we are at the moment. In Alego, let's hear your views on this. It seems as if Nigeria today is having a lot of difficulties in trying to even see what are the institutions, what do we do with the institutions, and how do we really make them functional, because they've already gone comatose. That's one side. On the other side, those coming up give the age bracket of maybe 30 to 40. Leave the 40, 50 and above, on one side of it. They don't even sometimes understand that there is supposed to be a sense of patriotism towards this nation in the first place. Talk less of having to obey rules and regulations that are just banal and ordinary everywhere else. Now, this has cost us a lot, and that's what we're paying the price for now. In your own opinion, how do we get out of it, and where do we start?
It's never too late to start. That's one of the things I want to say, that we've got to go back to basics, just like it was in the beginning. Things have to be done properly. And as a retired police officer, the Inspector General of Police can make a lot of difference. One person doesn't require a crowd. It doesn't require a crowd. It can make a difference. And that is, like Brigadier General was trying to say. I mean, when you ask a question on equality before the law, it's got to start somewhere. It's got to start the Inspector General of Police, because his officers look up to him, just as he looks up to the government. But he should be stable and be able to give leadership to the officers and say, look, this is what the law says. Both the letter and the spirit of the law should go hand in hand. And I give you an example. When I was promoted AIG, I was posted to Zone 9 Oma here. And they said, oh, his in-law is chief of staff to the governor. His in-law is this and that. I said, so former IG Adamu, he called me and said, Wilson, this is what they are saying. I said, well, I don't know what they are saying. The boy that married, the father of the young man that married my daughter, it's not chief of staff to the governor. He said, Wilson, just go and report. Go and do your work. You're a professional. You're not a politician. The Inspector General of Police must stand up for his officers. Because when you do that, they get up and say, yes, they will do the right thing. And those who do not do the right thing, they are punished. Parents must be good role models for their children. It's a responsibility that is given to you, that God gave you these children. Don't let them grow on the street. Bring them up. Because the problem that we have, like you rightly said, is from the age you stated up to 40. That's all the terrorism, banditry, kidnapping. These are the people involved. Where do these individuals come from? How come they are so hardened that they take life and it means nothing to them? What can we do about it? So there should be a national reorientation. Even starting from as simple as obeying the national anthem. That even if you are in your room, nobody is seeing you, you hear the national anthem, you stand up from your bed. You stand, national anthem is over. As simple as that can help. And once the head of institutions, and I think with the situation we have at hand, we should be thinking of having like a change management kind of thing. That is, you have the Inspector General of Police, having a say, okay, the DIG Research and Planning, I want you to head the change management team, comprising the DIGs and a few others. And you begin to look at some of these areas. You look at the national security strategy and see the threats highlighted in the national security strategy. When you look at it, you drop a policing plan. Do we have a policing plan? These are critical issues. So you've got to have, because nobody is going to do that for you. Let me tell you, I have retired. If you fail, nobody is going to say it's because somebody gave you a note. That is why you failed. No, they say you failed. So you should see that only you is responsible. You see it clearly when you retire from the force. If you do the right thing, the society will be better for it, and your name will be etched in gold. So I appeal, all I want to say, everything we are saying, the National Orientation Agency should be regigged, should be revived, should stand up. Let's begin to see more of the activities. Let them begin to talk on radios, motor parks, and everywhere. It used to be when it used to be MAMSA, it was very active. But NOAA, whether it is known now, I don't know. They're not active. They've got to be more active. And then the head of agencies should stand up and be counted. Parents, perform your role. Don't let your children go into wherever they are, find out. Try as the little you can, send them to school. Primary school, most primary schools are free. Encourage your children to go. When they grow and they become traders, and you train them, they'll be better traders than for them to begin to trade from age 5 to age 10. And later, they go to motor park, they start cutting receipt for a union, and from there they grow to become very big. It doesn't serve. But everything starts from first orientation. And thank God we have the National Orientation Agency. I think they need to be more active. They need to be more proactive. And then the head of agencies, the IG, the Chief of Army Staff, and the rest of them, should say, look, we are not politicians. This is the job you've given us. If you don't want, take it. All right, AIG Nalego, thank you very much. Back to our Kano Network Center, AIG Zarawa. I will return to the whole issue of equality before the law and the role of law enforcement officers, plus the orientation and reorientation package. What can we do to encourage and embolden our law enforcement officers, whether in policing or regulatory duties, to say, look, excuse me, this is the law. You are in breach of it. No matter who you are. I mean, assuming you are covered by Section 308, it's only for a period of time. And that section Section 308 of the 1999 Constitution as amended, which has to do with the conferment of immunity on the president, vice president, governor, and deputy governor. So that can only last for a period of 8 years if you have 2 terms. Thereafter, you face the law. When are we likely to get to that circumstance? And what do we need to do to say that, look, you've broken the law, and you face the consequences?
Thank you very much. You see, like what the is saying, that we need the IG can make a change in the orientation. I don't think IG can change it. We need a political orientation. All this say, like, you see, even posting of the, sometimes, let's say election is coming now. You'll discover that all these politicians, I post secretary, as you mentioned there now, they will come to your office, say that I want so person to be the area commander and so area. I want so person to be the area and this, all this blah blah. They will come and we need political orientation. IG cannot change all this issue because you will discover somebody can go and make it, even complain against IG, that IG is this blah blah, you should remove him, you should do it. And when these politicians are talking now, you are not there to defend yourself because they will say all sorts of things about you. So we need political orientation. If we can have political orientation, then we have a social orientation. That is the values we are talking at the family level. We need that one to be done. At the same time, you see, sometimes you discover that police are not performing very well because they have problem or this. Look at the issue of, just bringing in this issue of this, what do you call it, PEMCOM. Why is it that the police, the army, are not in the PEMCOM system? The police are the only people in the PEMCOM system. It's very unfair. So when you look at all this issue, we are talking corruption, collecting, look at the condition of service of the police. And maybe they're aggressing from what you're asking, but I have to say the truth, that we have to do something about that. Somebody retiring from police with meager amount of money that cannot take him anywhere. His condition is not there. The training is not there. Courses to go overseas, course to see what is happening, because sometimes you discover that all this issue of kidnapping now, we have most of our officers now in the police, they have not been trained. They don't go to see, like like we who were just senior to them, we were trained sometime overseas. But now locally, even the local training, you have to take care of yourself. That's not so. Issue of political, I mean, one thing the parliament about corruption is a political orientation we need, not number orientation. But the police are ready to do the job if the government or the political system will change and make sure that they are doing the right thing. But government to say that, like you mentioned, MAMSA, they try very well, whatever. But political orientation is what we need. Our problem is the political system, is what is happening. If we can take care of the political system of this country, I'm sure we are going forward. Because this is not happening before. All this is happening after all this issue of coming to democracy and whatever you have. Politicians are too powerful that sometimes somebody can go and complain about DPO, remove the DPO, remove the commissioner, retire him, and all that. Police are suffering about all this issue of this. Only whereas the people that are not coming out to complain and tell the society because they are afraid of what will happen tomorrow. Political orientation is what we need, not any other orientation. Maybe the social, the value, whatever. Of course, we have lost our values now. We need to come. But if it's with the political orientation, the politicians should limit themselves to politics, and they should allow the social, the security agency to do their job. Even all this recruitment we are talking, you discover that most of the time there are the people interfering in the recruitment system. Somebody will bring you a list of people, you have to recruit them. Even in the ministry, they are there. In everywhere they are. They are there, they go there. So we have to do a political orientation, not only say the police do corruption and whatever. Why they make them corrupt? Give police the right thing to do. Give them the work, the material to work. Give them the condition of service. They will perform very well. Like what you mentioned with Wilson. They are performing when you times, even if you put more, they go overseas. You discover that they are performing. But internally here, we find it very difficult because there's no, the tools to work with, the welfare and whatever have you. So please, what I'm saying now, all I'm agitating is political orientation rather than all this we are talking, we are shooting the air. Thank you very much.
I know that you want to jump in here. Are we saying, gentlemen, that this is a hopeless situation? I keep hearing, all right, political reorientation, politicians have this influence and so on and so forth. Politicians are not apart from the society. Politicians fall amongst those for whom law enforcement is a requirement. So if law enforcement officers feel helpless in dealing with political pressures, where does that leave us? I mean, what is the business, for instance, with a political operative getting into who is a DPO, who gets retained? You get so-called instructions from a political bigwig, oh, we don't want this area commander, we don't want... How is that your business? And it is because of this lingering and persistent interference that we're having all of these issues.
And indeed, Kingsley, you see, I really wanted to ask Brigadier General Kukasheka this question. And that's talking about, given the situation we have at the moment, it's more or less like a hopeless situation. But still, there is one man still standing at the moment. That's the Nigerian army, the Nigerian, military, that seem to have defied all this and been so much so encapsulated, or rather, a sort of, shielded from all these influences to a certain extent. Because I used to know the army then to be much stronger than it is at the moment when we're growing up. But my fear is, as time goes on, if things are not done rightly, moving forward, it may affect the army so much. How did the military happen to be the sole man standing at the moment in the, security outfits and agencies in this country, keeping to its tenets to a great extent, and of course maintaining its laws and orders, and maintaining its recruitment procedures, and having to say, okay, I think we're all right?
Well, I think it has to do with training and orientation. And in the military, it's more or less like a family system, in the sense that you go through a lot together, right from the enlistment or recruitment process. Either it is the Nigerian Army, Nigerian Navy, or the Nigerian Air Force, or the Nigerian Defense Academy for the officer cadre. Now, having the nature of the training and the orientation divide all these extraneous variables of ethnicity and religion. And that is why you find among the military, in most instances, your best friend may not necessarily come from the same geopolitical zone, talk less of a state or local government. And I know, for instance, myself, my best friend, I knew he came from Cross River State. Honestly, up to this moment, I don't know, and I don't care which local government he comes from. So basically, these are the kind of orientations, these are the kind of value system, if not because of the changes now we have. The military, particularly the officer cadre, they do not even go to hotel. If you happen to go to Makodi, you know your coursemate, you jump him up, and he will just sleep in the parlor, you go to his bedroom. That it gives greater sense of belonging. And you know that your life depends on that your colleague. And there is no bullet that is written, this is for Muslim or this is for Christian. So basically, these are the things. And coming back home, way back 1999, there was this understanding that having been in the political arena for quite some time, there is need for orientation of the military. And I know the army led the way with ONAT, transformation, and Office of the Nigerian Army Transformation and Orientation that time. And it was a 15-year plan that deal with particularly attitudinal change and so many other things that has to do with the fact that, look, unlike the previous system you had, now this is democratic governance, and you have to subject yourself to the authority of the civil authority, constituted authority. And things take time, there are procedures, there are bureaucracies and all the rest. So over time, and my argument is that to what extent can you orient in isolation with the wider society?
That's the question.
Now, and that is where we missed it. And that is the connection or the nexus between what AIG Zarewa was saying and what AIG Enalogu was saying. Now, there has to be that kind of sense of direction and leadership. Having realized that the military needed that orientation, we should also have realized that the Nigerian society needs orientation. Because all of us were victims of military administration as of that time. Now, to what extent are you orienting a Nigerian to understand that, unlike the military with immediate effect, things take time, and there are established institutions that you vent your grievances and all the rest. So first and foremost, you think of the orientation of the whole Nigerian society, then gradual and systematic strengthening of institutions that can take up this capacity. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had, you know, the ethno-religious crisis that we had in the early 2000s, you know, that people were saying that they were bent of anger and emotion simply because the system were not working, and it still persists till date. Unless we go back to that, strengthening institutions, then we will still have that problem. And going back to the issue of what makes the military unit, you know, it has a long history. And the training and orientation and retraining is systematic. In the sense, we are not there yet, but I can tell you, it gives you a lot of opportunities. And I heard yesterday when you were talking about the AIG having confidence and all the rest of the thing, you know, military service is also adventurous. The training system itself, you know, the sit within the barracks, because there are checks and balances. And that is why, you know, there is deliberate and responsible leadership, particularly at various cadre, either the as officers cadre or even the other rank cadre. You know, they start to groom you. And that is why punishment for a leader is the last thing you think for your subordinate, because you have that responsibility in terms of evaluation, watching, and that is why every month or every year there is this performance evaluation report in which you look at an officer, how has he fared over the year? Possibly he must have committed one misdemeanor or the other. You have checked him. To what extent has he reformed and all the rest? So there is kind of sense of responsibility and belonging. Each is responsible to each other, either as a superior or a subordinate or even as a colleague. And you know, the training, I mean the responsibility. Take for instance a battalion commander who maybe could be within his 20-something years or 30 years, that he is responsible for almost 1,000 men and equipment and of course their family. So over time, you have this responsibility and sense of belonging, and that was make the military tick.
All right, but General Kuka Shekar, thank you very much. The issue of reorientation, yes, one for the general society, but it appears to me, assuming they haven't done that, that other law enforcement agencies will need to borrow from what the military did from 1999, specific to them. Not this one now of saying, look, get X, Y, Z. Just for them to have a basic understanding of the law, for them to have a new disposition towards the law, equality before the law, and how to go about, you know, having a law and order society.
And also politicians on their own part should, as a matter of urgency and of course to strengthen democracy for which they serve, should, as a matter of urgency and a matter of importance, take it that it is for them that the enforcement is being made. Well, thank you so much. Brigadier General Sani Usman Kuka Shekar, MNI, former spokesperson Nigerian Army, thank you so much for coming on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you so much for having me on your program.
Abdurrahman Ayinde Yakubu, Director of Civil and Political Rights, Human Rights Commission. It's our pleasure being with us this morning. It's our pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.
And same goes to Wilson Analego, Assistant Inspector General of Police, retired. It's our pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hadi Zorewa, Assistant Inspector General of Police, retired, and of course, former Force Secretary. It's been our pleasure being with us this morning. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much to you out there. You've been part of this great conversation. We'll be back tomorrow with another topic of interest to all of you. On behalf of all of us here, I'm Mr. Dadabosman saying, see you tomorrow.
And I'm Kingsley Osadola saying, do take care of yourself.